Staff practices for students with disabilities by Stetson Associates. Dr. Wood, Ms. Stetson.
Good evening, Mrs. Purple, Dr. Lvisd, members of the board. We are bringing you tonight information from the Stetson staffing study that we did earlier this fall. No, it was last spring. It was last spring, excuse me. And we have the results now. We actually met with several groups of staff and parents and different stakeholders throughout the day today. We had 6 different groups, roughly about 60 people that we went through the results with, and we'd like to present those to you tonight. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Paula Watson with Stetson Walker, excuse me. We have a Paula Watson here, excuse me. Dr. Paula Walker, thank you. And Ms. Brenda Oates and Roseanne Armendariz, who are also going to share with you the results from the study, our next steps, and some of the feedback from today's meeting, which overall was very, very positive. So thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Lovett, Madam President, board members. Thank you for having me here, and it's very blessed to work with your district. You've got a lot of great people in your district working here. I work for Stetson & Associates. We're a small consulting firm out of Houston. We've been around for 30 years, and we frequently do staffing studies and program evaluations, but we also do training with general education teachers and special education teachers. So I was blessed to be able to do this staffing review for your campus. Many times when we call in other companies to do staffing reviews, special education is kind of its own little anomaly, and it takes a different type of eye to look at that. So we have a practice in which we look at staffing through 4 areas. Not only do we look at numbers, we look at sufficiency, which is the numbers. How much staffing do we have? Do we have adequate numbers to accomplish the provision of free appropriate public education for students with disabilities? And do we use our staff efficiently, meaning that staff are organized in the delivery of needed services to students. We efficiently and effectively organize our staff to provide services. And then we look at the effectiveness, meaning that are they achieving the outcomes for students? Are they providing appropriate instruction? Are they providing research-based instruction? And then appropriateness, meaning also to have the training and tools necessary to do their jobs. Because if you don't, then you can have many adults in the classroom and it feels like we don't have enough staff. So all of those components work together when we look at our staffing evaluations. We looked at 6 basic methodologies, and the first one was focus groups. So there were 9 focus groups. There were 2 of us that came into the district, and I conducted all the focus groups. And basically we asked the focus group sessions. There were special ed teachers, gen ed teachers, principals, special ed assessment staff, speech language pathologists, paraprofessionals, because you want the perspective of everyone, because we're all kind of in this together. So we asked them 2 basic questions and then just listen. And we try to collect that information verbatim as much as possible. And the first question is, what's going well in the district in special education supports and services? And then what's not going so well from your perspective? And then we did central office interviews with key personnel, with superintendent, associate superintendent, HR, finance, to ask them, how do you do staffing? How do you collaborate to work for staffing campuses? What's going well? What's not going so well from your perspective? And then my colleague did the observation component, which is they actually go into the classroom and then look at how is the instruction look. We have a rubric which we use, which we look for 3 critical components of instruction, not just in specialized classroom for special education, but also where that support service is being pushed in an inclusive model where they have co-teachers and support facilitation. So are they using research-based strategies? Is the general ed tier 1 instruction good quality tier 1 instruction? And then we look at TEA published data, student enrollment and staff members that have reported to the state. We also look at any district data that they want to provide to us, and every district's a little bit different about what they do provide. And then we looked at a comparable study. The superintendent had asked that we looked at the same 15 comparable districts that were in the TASB study. So we did that. There were a couple of districts that we didn't include when we did our analysis and comparison because they turned out to be shared service arrangements in which 10 or 11 districts actually share services for special education. So it's kind of comparing apples to oranges. So they sometimes were not included when we looked at ratios of staff to student. These were our overarching big findings, and as I go through this, you'll find most of them fall within two components, one of them being training, and the other being communication. So the district is actually richly staffed in the special ed administrative staff and supervisory staff. And in the staff to student ratios, they're adequately staffed. And so when you look at comparing ratios, we look at the TEA data of how many teachers are reported in the PEANS data as special ed teachers and how many are actually enrolled. So I want to just give a little bit of a caution is because our data is only as good as what's reported. And it's also a year old when we're already looking at that. And sometimes things have changed by the time we come in to do a district staffing study. So within a whole year, there's staff added or leave. So, but it gives you a basis of comparison. We don't call and verify numbers with districts because we can't verify the numbers we receive over the phone. So we use only published data. So the special education teacher to students with a disability ratio for Livonia ISD, according to the PEANS data, was higher than the state in Region 20, but lower than 18 of the 15 comparable districts. And there's a wide range in staffing ratios from 1 teacher to 11 students all the way up to as high as 1 to 35. So although that's a wide range, it at least gives you an idea of, you know, what is the range and what are our unique needs in Livonia that we may have a 1 to 12 or 1 to 15, and the actual ratio was in your information. We did find that there's some inconsistency in services across the district from campus to campus, that special education supports and services look a little bit different from campus to campus. The co-teach model or the inclusion model may be a little bit different, or even the specialized support services may be a little bit different. And that actually can lead to our perception that there's not enough staff if we're not well trained in implementing services in a research-based practice model. There continues to be a performance gap between students with disabilities and all students on the STAR test. Not only are we measuring how do our students with disabilities do they pass or not, the big national model is really how close are we to closing that gap. If our students in general have a 78 or 80% passing rate, what's our passing rate for our students with disabilities? And you want that gap to be closing as much as possible every single year. The district did meet their targets on overall accountability from TPA and for the state performance plan. It's very complicated for special education, but we have two accountability measures that we have to look at in special education. One is a performance-based monitoring system that has multiple indicators, and one is a state performance plan. And although it sounds like sometimes they measure the same thing, you would hope that that's what they would do, but that's not. Sometimes the TPA one, the state one, looks like it measures the same thing, but it uses different data and sometimes calculates it differently. So it's very hard to stay ahead of that accountability issue. But the district's actually doing fairly well. There were some performance indicators where they didn't meet, but they were pretty common across the state for other districts also. There's some pockets of really good model classrooms for good inclusive practices, good quality Tier 1 instruction across the district. But we did see some inconsistency across the district, not only in Tier 1 instruction, but in the collaborative teaching and in-class support that happens for special education services. The district, the least restrictive environment target is a big target that we're held accountable nationwide. Every state has it. And it's about moving students back into the general education classroom as much as possible. And so for ages 6 to 21, we're measuring how many spend 80% or more of their day in the general ed setting, and the district did meet that target. And that's a pretty big deal in the state and nationally right now. These are some recommendations that came out of the major findings, which is It's important to review the job descriptions of special education administrative staff to make sure we're all on board and we're aligned so that we can better effectively communicate and integrate and collaborate with the district as a whole, and make sure that our responsibilities are very clear for that. Teachers felt, in the focus groups, there were a lot of comments about feeling like they were pulled in many different directions. And sometimes that can happen if you're doing multiple assignments or you don't feel trained and well qualified for all the things you're asked to do. So I don't always know the reason for the comments that were made, and that's where the district kind of takes that a little bit further. But looking at teacher schedules and their responsibilities and ensuring that they're using efficient time and they have adequate resources is very important. There needs to be consistent training for teachers, paraprofessionals. That's through special education and general education. We need to decide, especially in our special ed programs, what kind of interventions are we going to use, what kind of support systems are we going to have, and then everybody, there has to be a cycle for training on that. We can't do a one and done. We have to make sure that everybody has the appropriate tools and resources available to do the jobs that they've been assigned to do. And it takes that constant planning and training, which is really hard to do. In our district, as far as inclusion practices, we have to decide in the Learning ISD, what is inclusion going to look like? And that language and that common vision has to be across all departments, all campuses, from the central office all the way down. So we're all speaking the same language and we all have the same vision and we're communicating that. We can't be, for years, special education's kind of been like a separate silo, and so is bilingual. And probably the last 10 to 12 years has been a huge push that we start focusing on, we are one system, we are one district. These are all our students. They belong to us here in Livonia ISD, and we've got to integrate and work together to make sure our services and supports across areas are streamlined, and that there's not decisions made that impacts of just a single group of people because we didn't communicate effectively. When doing staffing, we recommend a non-categorical approach. In special ed, for a long time, we've been like, well, I'm a life skills teacher, or well, I'm a teacher of students with autism, and oh no, I only teach resource and inclusion. Where in fact, we need to facilitate that common language of we're all special education teachers, and we provide supports and services to this campus. And if I need to support across this area for this time right now, that's what I need to do. And that helps with effective and efficient use of staff. Because numbers in special education classrooms go up and down. I can start the year in a PPCD classroom with 3 students, and by the end of the year end up with 20. But in the meantime, we need to be utilizing our staff across categories to serve the students that are here at that time. One of the common issues that came up repeatedly, and this is, I want to preface this by saying this is not a Livonia issue. I hear this a lot in every district I go to right now, but were some really significant concerns about the behavioral issues that kids are coming to school with. And so part of what we saw was that there wasn't a consistent behavioral intervention system across districts, not for kids with special needs, but just a positive behavior support system that was understood across all campuses and implemented across all campuses. Because those kids with high needs behaviors are not always students with disabilities. And so there needs to be that communication across services and supports, but there needs to be some very well communicated, very well trained system of interventions of social skills and working on those behaviors. We're getting a unique mixture of kids who come to school now from all over the world in all our districts. And so teachers are facing some challenges they've never faced before, quite frankly. So that came up probably in every single focus group, was that you don't understand, we have these kids and they're different here and our needs are different here. And truthfully, I hear that everywhere I go, and I think it's just a society issue, but it needs to be addressed because they are in our schools. As I said earlier, there needs to be effective Tier 1 instruction. When gone are the days of stand and deliver, and I'm going to teach this group, and we're all going to do the same thing all at the same time. Those days are over in education, have been for quite some time. And so we saw some really good pockets of good quality, engaging instruction where all kids were involved, and then we saw also some not so good Tier 1 instruction. And And that's where it really starts, even outside of special education. We're pushing services and supports into that general ed classroom for a lot of kids. That tier 1 instruction and that collaborative instruction between those two teachers has got to happen. There was also a lot of discussion about paperwork, and we're inundated with paperwork in special education, but most of those comments came from, I either don't know how to do it, or I'm being asked to do it in multiple ways, and document the same thing in multiple systems. And so I don't know the reason for that, but sometimes I know their perception is their reality. And having been an administrator in special ed, you can train all day long, but if they don't understand it, teachers don't understand it, or they feel like it's overburdensome, you still have to look at why is it overburdensome and is there something we can do about that. The last part is, I just want to say that this was not a compliance visit. Nobody made the district do this. This is something they initiated on their own, so that you should be commended for that. It's a big step to bring in an outside party to look at your systems and your supports and see if they're adequate, and to look at your staffing, which is always a huge issue among staff. So you're commended for bringing us in and looking at that and trying to take a look at your district through another lens. So it was a privilege working here. You got some great staff. I think Brenda's going to come up and kind of address some of the findings that we have. So any questions for me that I can answer about this study?
I've got questions, but Brenda may be answering them.
If she can, then I'll
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.